But the song is so cheesy. I don't even know if it qualifies as yacht rock.
Hey everybody, welcome back in the shed. I'm Troy. This is Dave.
Hello.
Today we're talking about the top 3 spring songs. They're songs about spring. But before we get started, I want you to leave your picks below, see if they match ours, and also make sure to subscribe to the channel and like this video. There's really not that many songs specifically about spring, so my choices are more about, warmer weather, sun, and just kind of songs that make you feel good.
Not summer songs, but spring songs.
Exactly. So why don't we just get rolling? What's your number 3 spring song?
Well,
it is spring. Spring's coming, so it's perfect time.
Should be here in about a week.
Yeah.
And it feels like spring right now. And we got the mayflies to prove it. But anyways, my number 3 song is not a spring song per se, but it's John Fogerty, Centerfield. Few institutions ring in the spring like our American pastime, which is baseball.
Well, I beat the drum and hold the phone. The sun came out today.
And that song was on my list for a split second.
Really?
Yeah.
That song was released in 1984 off of John Fogerty's album by the same name.
Just around and bird and head about home. It's a brown-eyed handsome man.
It was Fogerty's first album after a 9-year hiatus. He hadn't put anything out for a long time. But it was a huge comeback because he'd pretty much faded from the whole music scene.
Yeah.
And a lot of that was because of a lot of the legal wranglings that he had with his previous record label.
And I heard that he was accused of ripping himself off, like stealing his own sound.
Yeah, he was famously sued by his previous label because they thought the song on that album, Centerfield, Old Man Down the Road, was a ripoff of Run Through the Jungle.
The old man is down the road.
But it's a pretty famous episode in music because, he got screwed by his old label and his old manager and their label who owned all the rights to the song. And it famously went to the Supreme Court. And they ended up ruling in John's favor.
Yeah, you can't steal your sound from yourself.
And he wrote the song.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the thing about it that everyone found, mind-boggling.
Yeah.
Is that you can get sued by a label for stealing your own songs. And I don't think that's really come up again, but, that just shows you the power that the labels had back in the day. When you're young and dumb and you sign away the rights to all your songs, and then they own you.
Yeah.
But it worked out in his favor in the end. And, that song is like 40 years old, but it still holds up. And it's still played at countless, minor league, major league ballparks every year.
It definitely makes you think of baseball.
Oh, definitely. Well, it's about baseball,
Yeah,
but I mean, it's a song that John's probably made tons of money off of every time they played at the ballpark.
Exactly.
Put me in cold. I'm ready to play today.
And another little fact is that it's the only song that's ever been inducted into the National Baseball Hall of Fame.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
But, spring in baseball, it's like PB&J, and that's my number 3 spring song.
Great number 3.
Look at me, gotta be Centerfield.
My number 3 is Johnny Nash, I Can See Clearly Now.
I almost picked that one.
I can see clearly now, the rain is gone.
It was on his 1972 album by the same name. It went to number 1 on the Billboard charts.
Sure did.
And sold over 1 million copies.
Yeah, it was a great song.
I can see all obstacles in my way.
And it's a song that's been covered a few times, but Johnny Nash is definitely the definitive version of that song.
Yeah, it's one of those songs that I've heard a million times, but I was trying to remember, where have I heard this song before, and how do I know it so well? Because I've been listening to it lately, and I know the song from the beginning to end, and that whole little bridge part in the middle.
Straight ahead, nothing but blue sky.
I listen to classic rock radio. That's pretty much what I listen to my whole life, you know? And I'm like, how do I know this song? I guess maybe through commercials or movies and stuff,
It's
but
probably been licensed, but like I said, it was a song that Johnny Nash made huge, but I think it's been covered many times by people.
Probably so,
It's
yeah.
probably been in movies, and it's probably been on TV shows, and you're right, it's probably been on commercials, because commercials are full of
yeah.
classic rock or classic songs these days.
It's gonna be a bright, 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 sunshiny day.
But you know, since all these artists have been selling their catalogs, which I think is smart. I mean, you know, you want a $100 million payday, go
Cash
ahead.
in right before you die, I
Yeah,
guess.
cash in while you're
Yeah.
old and feeble. But so many commercials have these classic songs from the
Yeah.
60s, 70s, and pretty much 80s.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's a song that if we haven't already seen it on a pharmaceutical commercial
We will soon.
or eyeglass commercial, it's probably ripe for the
or,
picking.
or an Ozempic commercial.
That one's already been used.
Yeah, so Johnny Nash, I didn't know who sang the song until I looked it up. I've to tell you the truth, I've never heard of Johnny Nash before, but he was from Houston, and he died just a few years ago at the age of 80.
All right.
Yeah, so he could have been playing that song for the past 50 years, maybe. I don't know. I don't know if he still played around or toured or anything or not. But anyway, that's my number 3 spring song. What's your number 2?
My number 2 song is going to be The Rain Song by Led Zeppelin.
It is the springtime of my loving.
That was on my list for 2 seconds too.
Was it?
Yeah.
It was released in 1973 off Led Zeppelin's awesome Houses of the Holy album.
Season, I'm to know. You are the sunlight in my growing.
Supposedly, Jimmy Page wrote that song because he had heard vis-a-vis from John Bonham that George Harrison had said to Bonham, why doesn't Zeppelin ever write any ballads? I know they had some slower songs back in the day, but, you know, that was George's opinion. It's a beautiful song and it really stands out in the Led Zeppelin catalog. Of course, Rolling Stone originally gave it a shitty review. The reviewer was Gavin Edwards, and he criticized the Mellotron and a lot of the stuff about the song. But years later, guess what?
They changed their mind.
They revised it. He revised it. You know, it's a spring song, Springtime of My Lovin'. It's a song they played live, I think, even when I saw them back in 77, I think they played it. Of course, it was on The Song Remains the Same album. It was on their How the West Was Won album. I read this quote from Rick Rubin, who said, quote, I don't even know what kind of music this is. It defies classification. There's such a tasteful, beautiful detail in the guitar and a triumphant feel when the drums come in. It's sad and moody and strong all at the same time. I could listen to this song all day and it would be a good day. I'm going to go along with Rick Rubin's assessment of that song. It's really hard for me to pick a favorite off of Houses of the Holy because it was so chock full of great songs. But this was really the mellowest song, one of the mellowest songs that Led Zeppelin ever did. And that's my number 2 spring song.
Great number 2. My number 2 is the Lovin' Spoonful, Daydream.
What a day for a daydream. What a day for a daydreaming boy.
Another Lovin' Spoonful.
I love the Lovin' Spoonful, and this song isn't specifically a spring song, but when I hear the song, I sort of imagine myself like laying in a hammock with a cool spring breeze.
I got you.
Maybe drinking a
Cold beverage.
cold beverage of some kind, you know.
And even if time ain't really on my side, it's one of those days for taking a walk outside.
But it was on their second album that came out in 1966. The album is called Daydream.
It's starring me and my sweet dream, 'cause she's the one makes me feel this way.
Lovin' Spoonful, I've said this on a previous episode, it's one of my first memories of music because I had the best of the Lovin' Spoonful, and I loved every song on that album. When I heard the Lovin' Spoonful when I was a kid, it
was your mom's album.
it was my
right?
mom's album, and I still have the album at home.
Really?
Yeah. And it inspired me to want to become a musician and to write songs.
What a day for a daydream, custom made for a daydreaming boy.
So the song was said to have inspired Good Day Sunshine by the Beatles.
Good day, sunshine. Good day, sunshine.
And Sunny Afternoon by the Kinks.
Blazing on a sunny afternoon.
You told me this on a previous episode, and I didn't know that he wrote and sang the Welcome Back Kotter theme.
You sure did.
And I thought that was pretty cool, because I
Yeah.
used to love that show.
I did too.
Yeah, we tease him a lot, 'cause we got him on the spot. Welcome back.
It was part of my Monday night ritual or whatever night it was on. But
It was part of my afternoon ritual, because I was watching the reruns.
I had to watch it live because you couldn't replay it back in the day. But
Yeah.
there were all these shows like, I gotta say, like Welcome Back, Kotter, and there was tons of them that you had to watch it when it came out.
Yeah.
That night, or you never saw it again.
That's right. He hoped for a rerun down the road.
20 years later in syndication, maybe.
Exactly,
But
exactly.
yeah. Lovin' Spoonful is great.
Yeah. So that's my number 2. What's your number 1?
Well, my number 1 is going to probably be Troy's number 1 because there's really one song that I can think of that really talks about spring, and
Okay.
it's the Beatles, Here Comes the Sun.
You're right. It's my number 1 too.
All right.
Yeah.
Here comes the sun. Doo-doo-doo. Here comes the sun. I say it's alright.
What's great about us having the same picks is that I'll just let you do all the talking. I don't have to say anything.
And it makes the episode shorter
That's right.
for your benefit. It was a song that George wrote, and it came out on the Abbey Road album. And basically, George, wrote it and sang it, and it really became one of the Beatles' best songs.
Little darling, it's been a long, cold, lonely winter.
Abbey Road was really the last album that the Beatles recorded, even though, they had Let It Be, which was released later, but that was actually recorded right before Abbey Road, and Abbey Road was the final Beatles album. And George at this point was really stretching his wings because he'd been pretty much sidelined by, John and Paul throughout the whole, era of the Beatles, although George had great songs like, While My Guitar Gently Weeps. But that song...
Which has Eric Clapton playing the guitar on it, and he wrote that song at Eric Clapton's house.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He was hanging out at Eric's pad and mansion, I'm sure it was. But him and George were, pretty tight. Shared the woman. But That's, to me, is one of George's and the Beatles' best songs.
Here comes the sun. Here comes the sun. I say it's alright.
And of course, the song Because, that was on Abbey Road, became arguably one of the greatest songs of all time.
Because the wind is high.
But George had those two songs on Abbey Road, and it really cemented him into the legacy of the Beatles.
Sun, 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 here it comes. Sun, 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 here it comes.
But one thing that was pretty cool about that song, and you probably may remember this, but you know, you were too young, but George played that song with Paul Simon on Saturday Night Live in like 1976, the beginning of Saturday Night Live.
Ladies and gentlemen, my friend George Harrison.
That's the episode where Lorne Michaels famously presented a check to George for $3,000 to get the Beatles back together.
Really?
See, I thought that you would understand that if it was, $3,000 for 4 people, then it would just be $750 for
But legend has it that Paul McCartney was at John Lennon's apartment and they were watching Saturday Night Live when Lorne made that offer.
Yeah.
And Paul actually supposedly said, "Hey John, let's go."
Really?
They're only a few blocks from Radio City,
Oh, man.
John's apartment, and Paul thought it would be, just do it.
Yeah.
But John didn't want to do it.
Yeah. He was a little lazy, I think.
Well, there's probably several reasons why John didn't want to do it, but that's part of the legend of, and I've seen it on TV. I've seen interviews about Paul talking about it, and alas, it never happened. But the George Harrison, Paul Simon, duet. They sang it as a duet.
I've
but-
never seen that. Is it on
Yeah.
YouTube?
Oh yeah.
If it's on YouTube, we'll show it right here.
All right, we're gonna show it.
Here comes the sun. Doo-doo-doo. Here comes the sun. I say, well, it's alright.
If it's not on YouTube, then you won't see it, I guess.
But to me, that's the best springtime song of all time.
Did you know that song is the most played Beatles song on Spotify?
Really?
With over 1 billion plays.
I believe it.
Incredible, huh?
It's one of those songs we all had to learn how to play on guitar.
Yeah.
I never used a capo like George did, but I did figure it out at some point.
Yeah. Great number 1, and of course it's my number 1. What's your top picks for the best springtime songs of all time? Leave your picks below.
Love to hear it, folks.
And make sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and all that good stuff. We'll see you next time in the shed.
All right. Adios, folks.